Now, first it was war, then natural disaster, two of the biggest threats to mankind. When the earthquake struck in northern Syria 2 months ago, hospitals ravaged by a dozen years of fighting were in no state to cope with their terrible aftermath. They are still struggling to provide desperately needed care. Emma Murphy and her team has made it across the border between Turkey and Syria and into Idlib. There she saw and heard the distress of the earthquake's youngest victims as medical staff battle against the odds to save them.
They are the babies of the quake, born as so many died, but born too soon, in a place of war waged by man and disaster wrought by nature.
We don't have an adequate equipment, and we don't have enough medical service, device, drugs. We don't know what to do to save boys and these girls.
3 years ago, I met Dr. Ikram as bombs fell around this hospital. They were overwhelmed then, but could at least send the sickest children to Turkey for care. Now Turkey's medical system is also overwhelmed.
I want to feel that the people feeling with us. People dying every day here, and no one help us.
Every working incubator is now full, with no space left to care for new cases. More days than they can face counting, nurses lose the battle to save a young life. They tried and tried to keep this little boy alive, but their efforts were in vain. His life literally ebbed away in their hands, less than an hour after he'd been born. Soon, his mother, like this mother, will be handed the lifeless body of her child to carry home. Somehow, she found words to reflect her loss.
أثر بكل شيء. إني أول شيء توفى ابني.
So many of the children who did survive will live without limbs or relatives. Wael doesn't know that his mother and sister are dead. Doctors don't know for sure if they can save his arm. Noor is 2. She spent 60 hours under the rubble. Her mother and brother are dead. Only her father survived. She, like many others, will never know what it is to grow up with both her legs.
And here in the back. I'm very sad about them. They are like my baby or any other baby you know in the world.
12 years of war here has eroded hope. The earthquake has taken much of what's left, leaving survivors and their families fearful of the world around them and frightened of the land they live on. 2 months on, there is a dreadful routine for the survivors. Every week, 7-year-old Ala is brought to the hospital with her brothers, Mohammed, who's 5, and 16-year-old Mustafa, to have their wounds treated. Ala now knows the pain that comes with these visits. Even the treat of a golden crown and nail varnish can only distract so much. Exhausted, they are taken back to their tent until the next visit. The awful new reality of life for so many.
I tell my siblings to thank God that we were rescued. This earthquake affected all of us. Destroyed houses, destroyed families. Children lost their parents and will be sad all their lives. No one will forget it.
In the early days, rescue brought joy here. 4-year-old Hussein was under the rubble for 45 hours. His survival was celebrated. But his recovery has brought further loss. The leg doctors tried to save has now gone. His father, also grieving a wife and a daughter, now tries to encourage his little boy to believe there is a future, even in a wheelchair, with what's left of his leg propped by floorboards. For so many, this is tragedy compounded. Abdul Ghani and Naeem are 14. They survived war, but lost all their families in the earthquake. 2 friends left with only each other and their injured bodies and minds. When an airstrike hit his home, Abdul Ghani was trapped for 2 hours. The earthquake trapped him for 12.
I could hear people shouting, "Is anyone alive?" Then someone said, "I don't think they are. Let's go to the other building." And I screamed and screamed. And they heard me and got me out.
The aftershocks on the land here have now eased, but they will continue in the lives of those for whom survival was the beginning of the challenges, not the end. Emma Murphy, News at 10, Northern Syria.